Howdy there, friends, family, adversaries, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary folks. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Riley Constantine, and today we are talking about film criticism, by which I mean the line between acceptable movie critique and personal attack, which was a line that was recently crossed by New York Post critic Johnny Oleksinski in his review of Spiral from the Book of Saw. This should be a very good and straightforward episode, so without further ado, here we go. As a general rule of thumb, I believe a movie reviewer should not attack the audience. While a critic can eviscerate a bad movie in almost any way they see fit, the people that either created the film or the people that enjoy it should not be the subject of personal ridicule. While there are definitely exceptions to this rule if an actor or a director insults a critic, or if a film is enjoyed by a subtype of legitimately awful people, overall creatives, and for the topic of this video, the audience, should not feel the wrath of a movie critic's pen for committing the crime of enjoying a movie, series, or genre that the critic in question detests. The audience should not receive vitriol due to their personal taste, when only the work in question should be criticized. And for me, this is a fairly simple and straightforward rule that has served me well for a few years and has mostly kept me out of trouble. And it is a simple rule that more critics should heed. Yet this simple rule of thumb was violated recently by New York Post reviewer Johnny Oleksinski in his review of Spiral from the Book of Saw, which, if you couldn't have guessed, is the latest entry in the Saw franchise. In his review, Oleksinski lambasts the movie as being a part of the torture porn genre, i.e. a subset of horror movies that shock the audience with an excessive amount of gore, gross-out kills, and making the audience physically uncomfortable. And as far as genres go, Oleksinski loathes this type of horror film. For him, excessively bloody and gory films like Saw and Hostel are not a good time at the movies, which alone is fine as far as criticisms go. After all, no one can be expected to like or enjoy every type of movie ever made. That would be impossible, and Oleksinski preferring specific horror genres over others is an understandable viewpoint. But then again, that isn't the issue here. The problem with Oleksinski's Spiral from the Book of Saw review is that he crossed a moral critical boundary and personally insulted fans of a particular film series and genre, which is a bad thing. Obviously. To quote his review as an example, fans of torture porn films, whom I so look forward to hearing from, are depraved lunatics who should not be allowed near animals or most living things. Their arguments in favor of the genre's most egregious titles are total bullshit. These so-called movies are completely and utterly worthless and barely deserve to exist on the periphery of cinema. End quote. Now, I have a few things I'd like to say about this. Starting off, I honestly don't care that he's criticizing movies like Saw. See, when it comes to my cinematic palette, I'm actually kind of the same as Oleksinski here. Similar to Oleksinski, I generally prefer horror movies that use gore to enhance the story it's telling rather than be the focus. I'd much prefer to watch a scary movie with sympathetic characters rather than a film where the characters are presented as disposable cannon fodder meant to be brutally murdered in epic fashion. And yes, this is even the case when their deaths are very creative. But here is the thing. This is a personal preference of mine, and I do not begrudge anyone for enjoying a film, series, or genre that I don't like. Because if I were to do that, that would be a dickhead move. It would be a pretentious statement where I place myself above others, which would be a problem because that's most certainly not the case. In reality, me disliking a certain genre of film doesn't make me superior to people who otherwise do enjoy that genre. And that's something I wish critics like Oleksinski understood, because truthfully, a critic viewing themselves as superior due to their taste in cinema is nothing more than self-important ego-stroking twaddle, and verbally attacking the audience for undue reason is downright trashy, and sadly, Oleksinski engaged in both of these bad behaviors. He demeaned other people's character, all because they liked a certain type of cinema that he detests, and honestly, this is personally insulting, mostly because I know and am friends with a lot lot of good and kind people who do enjoy the Saw series and other similar horror films. They are clearly not bad people. Yet in his review of Spiral from the Book of Saw, Oleksinski felt the need to go on a rant about how many moviegoers he's never met are depraved lunatics and should not be around animals or living things, which is a type of criticism that should be off limits. Like, this is completely disrespectful to actual people and pretentious conjecture on his part as a critic. Hell, when Oleksinski makes his outrageous statement, his review veers away from being an understandable critique and enters the territory of baseless vindictive against a subset of moviegoers. Like, make no mistake, Oleksinski is verbally attacking people by calling them depraved lunatics, and he's saying that they are harmful to society without any evidence to back that claim up. And while for sure there are times where movie-going audiences should be criticized, like how racists uncritically love The Birth of a Nation, or how many incels relate to Todd Phillips' Joker movie, the same shit cannot be said about people who like the Saw movies. And when Oleksinski makes his statement calling people who like Saw lunatics without providing any evidence, studies, expert testimony, or anything, he's just hurling insults and making bullshit up in order to support his flawed argument that villainizes people who dare to enjoy a movie, a franchise, and a genre that he loathes. He isn't arguing the pros and cons of a film or bringing up any new or meaningful critique. He is just attacking the audience for no real meaningful reason. He is making this argument in bad faith and without evidence. To sum up, Oleksinski's review is incredibly mean-spirited given that many good people, hell, many good people that I know, enjoy movies like Saw and don't deserve to be grouped together with animal abusers and violent people. Fucking obviously. The comparison is unwarranted, mean, grotesque, and reeks of cinephile snobbishness that reflects poorly on Oleksinski as a writer and the New York Post as a publication. While for sure negative film criticism can be a healthy part of online discourse, ridiculing the audience is the wrong way to do this and only fosters resentment between the audience, the writer, and by extension, the publication. And that's not good for anybody. Them's the facts. Them's the facts. Alright, that was another video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like rating and subscribe to my channel. Consider donating to my Patreon so I can keep doing this for a living because it's fun. Also, speaking of Patreon, I want to thank my high tier patrons in Slasher Fails, Mom, David Devlin, and Miles Nelson. Thank you so much for supporting what I do. Love y'all.